Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we will be doing the second and final part of our playthrough of the For the Empire expansion for Old School Tactical Volume 4, the Italian Theater. This features some New Zealand armor going up against some German Fallschirmjäger in March of 1944 in Italy. And I played turn one as a full-on regular video where you go through it the whole turn. We did one whole turn to show pretty much how armor works, the armor rules. And now in this video, we're going to switch up our tactics a little bit in terms of how the video is done and do it as an AAR style, which means that I will do some turn-by-turn recaps, essentially, show kind of what's going on in each turn, but briefly, so that you can follow the progress of the rest of the scenario if you're curious to see how things turn out. And then ultimately we'll have the entire scenario played out and you can kind of get a sense of, how the game actually went. So without further ado, we're going to get started here. Now, this is a game where we count turns down. So this was an 8-turn scenario. We are now in turn 7, which is the second turn, if you want to look at it in that way. This game, one of the twists of this game, or one of the interesting things, is that though this is an 8-turn scenario, when we get to turn 1, there is a possibility that we get an extra turn, a turn 0, if you would, and that would be, a little bit of a bonus, an extra bonus round. It'll also depend on what's going on. There are 3 control hexes that have to be captured by the Kiwi forces to win the scenario. So we're going to, or they need to at least win 2 of them. So we're going to pick this up here. I'm going to go into AAR mode now, where I'll just highlight some moves and kind of show what's going on, and it'll be a lot briefer than going turn by turn.
So for turn 7, we'll take a quick look here at the setup as it exists here at the start of the turn. Our initiative rolls resulted in the New Zealanders getting the initiative. And in terms of impulse points, after rolling, they got a 9. That is, New Zealand got a 9. And the Germans have 7 impulse points for this turn. So the first action of the turn is a Stuart firing on a Fallschirmjäger with no damage. That's followed up by the Pack 40 taking a shot at one of the Shermans, and it connects with both the 2-hit number and kills the tank. The crew does not survive. Then New Zealand uses their luck card. It's a ground attack. It's brought in on the Pack 40. It has 6 firepower. The result ends up being a broken, but the Pack 40 passes its gut check. However, the ground attack has much better success with the secondary target, which is Sergeant Teller's squad, and they end up killing both the squad and Sergeant Teller. Next, we have a Fallschirmjäger using a Panzerfaust to fire at a Stuart, but they miss with a 7 on the die roll. That squad pays a heavy price as they are killed by the Sherman right next door. Next up, Sergeant Kelting rallies his shaken squad. Next, the New Zealanders create a fire group with Lieutenant Hawkins, and he fires at the group under Sergeant Kelting and kills the squad, but Kelting manages to survive. Having taken their lumps, the Germans activate one of their hidden units and move it down to pick up one of the abandoned Panzer Shreks. The New Zealanders move up one of their Shermans to the cemetery wall. This means that Sergeant Kelting is going to relocate. He heads up towards the hex where the just revealed hidden unit had taken up residence. The New Zealanders elect not to opt fire on him as he moves. The Sherman further east elects to move up 2 hexes, which brings it close enough to be able to fire at some of the remaining German units without being exposed to their weapons, aside from the Pack 40, of course. The Germans elect to bring in their second hidden unit, and they will try to move him across the top of the board, but unfortunately for them, the Sherman at the very bottom elects to take an opportunity fire shot, and they actually hit and destroy the half or already reduced squad, I should say. With what would turn out to be the last shot of the turn, the Pack 40 fires at the Sherman that just fired and killed that Fallschirmjäger. unit, and they manage to hit and kill the tank. And despite having a +1 on their die roll modifier due to the line of sight being obscured by the wreck smoke, they do hit and they do kill the tank and kill the crew, and that wraps up turn number 7. Turn 6 initiative roll is won by New Zealand. The impulse roll also gives them the edge, but the Germans play their luck card Battle Weary, and that docks the Kiwis 5 impulse points, leaving them with 4 after the modifiers are applied, and the Germans themselves end up with 7, which will make this a shorter turn. With few impulses available, New Zealand employs their lone off-board artillery strike with 6 firepower. The accuracy roll is a 6, and the German defense is a 4. Unfortunately, neither the Pak-40 nor the Fallschirmjäger in the adjacent hex take any damage from the artillery. The Pak-40 fires at the Stuart. We get a -1 DRM for the line of sight through the wreck, degrading. And their firepower of 9 versus armor 3, but they don't even get to that point because they end up missing. The Stuart then moves up, and the Germans hold off on opportunity fire. The Stuart does pass the bog checks along the way. The Germans move up to get into position for a tank killing shot. The Stuart uses op fire, but does no damage. Next, the Shermans under Lieutenant Hawkins use a group move to move up into a decent defensive position, and that finishes the Kiwis' turn, as they are now out of impulse points. With the Germans having all the moves left, they use their Panzerfaust to fire on the Stuart, but they miss. Sergeant Kelting then moves his men into range for his own attack. They fire at the Stuart and score a hit. That hit turns out to be a killer, as it destroys the Stuart and kills the crew as well. With the final move of the turn, the Germans change the facing of their Pak-40. With no Kiwis left on the west side of the map, they rotate it to face east. Turn 5 sees the Kiwis win the initiative roll 6-4, and also get better impulse points roll as well, and they end up with, after modifiers, they end up with 10 points to the Germans' 8. With no line of sight for Hawkins to attack the Pak-40 due to 2 hexes of cemetery between them, Hawkins attacks the Fallschirmjäger again along the wall to their northeast. The fire group has a firepower of 8 against 5 defense. The Germans get a +2 for the stone wall. This puts them in the +1 column, but they also get a +1 for Hawkins on the DRM, and the Fallschirmjäger squad is eliminated on a die roll of 10. With their forces rapidly dwindling, the Germans move Sergeant Kelting and his reduced squad back towards the enemy, and the New Zealanders do not opt to use op fire. The westmost Sherman crushes through the stone wall and into the cemetery, making a shot at the Pak-40 possible. Because of the +2 cost for the wall and the +2 cost for the cemetery terrain, this move actually burns up 4 movement points. Sergeant Kelting's men fire at the Sherman in the cemetery, but they miss their shot with degraded line of sight through the tombs. The Sherman now fires at the Pak-40 with 4 firepower, but they also have a -1 degradation of their line of sight due to the cemetery, and that results in a miss. The Pak-40 returns fire, but with penalties for the line of sight through the cemetery and their reduced crew, the die roll of 7 results in a miss. Lieutenant Hawkins has his 2 Shermans form a fire group to attack Sergeant Kelting's men. They take a -1 degradation of line of sight, and the Germans have a +2 to their defense for being in the ruins, but the +1 from Hawkins and the die roll of 8 eliminates the Fallschirmjäger, and even worse, Kelting is also eliminated when he fails his die roll. The Germans pass, and the Kiwis take the chance to move their eastern Sherman up, trying to make an end around towards the control hexes. The Pak-40 takes an op fire shot before the Sherman gets behind a ruined building. They hit with an 8, and then on the +6 column, the die roll of 7 kills the Sherman, and the crew does not survive. With all remaining units out of action, the turn ends. Turn 4 begins with the Pak-40 as the last German unit standing. The initiative goes to the Kiwis with a roll of 9 to the Germans' 5. The impulse points end up squared at 9 each after die rolls and modifiers. The casualty points stand at 12 for New Zealand and 14 for the Germans. The armor takes its first shot at killing that pesky anti-tank gun, but the roll comes up just short and they have no effect. The Pak-40 then fires at the Sherman in the cemetery, needing an 8 to hit but coming up with just a 4 for a costly miss. Sherman takes another crack and this time nails the already reduced gun for a second casualty, killing it. The die roll for gun survival, which is unnecessary here, but I'm including it as a teaching point, is too low at 4. A 5 or a 6 would have left the gun unmanned but still serviceable. With all the German forces now eliminated, the Kiwi armor can easily capture the 3 control hexes and claim victory. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing if you enjoyed the video. And even if you don't do those things, I hope you'll come back and watch something in the future. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them as well. I will do my best to answer. But that's going to do it. I'm Joe. This is the Hexed Encounter channel. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.